It was a cold autumn evening when the new students arrived at Crestwood High, a school that had long been rumored to be haunted. The buildings, a mix of old brick and ivy-covered walls, stood like silent sentinels in the fading light. As they approached the entrance, an eerie feeling hung in the air, but none of them could have known the full extent of the horrors they would soon face. Among the new students was Emma, a curious and adventurous teenager who had always been fascinated by ghost stories. She had heard whispers about Crestwood's dark past, the tragic death of a student decades ago and strange, inexplicable events that followed. But Emma was skeptical, dismissing the tales as mere superstition. On her first day, Emma found herself in the oldest wing of the school, a part of the building where students seldom went. The hallways were dimly lit, the air musty, as if the building itself had been abandoned for years. The door to the old library creaked as she pushed it open, revealing rows of dusty bookshelves and forgotten treasures. As she explored, she noticed something strange. A faint, almost imperceptible whisper echoed through the room. She froze. The whisper grew louder, forming words she could almost make out, but they slipped away just as quickly as they came. Emma's heart began to race. She turned to leave, but the door slammed shut on its own, trapping her inside. Panicking, Emma rushed to the window, but the glass remained stubbornly intact. The temperature in the room dropped, her breath visible in the icy air. That's when she saw it, a shadow, tall and thin, moving across the far corner of the room. The figure was shrouded in darkness, its features indistinguishable. Emma's blood ran cold. She tried to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. Suddenly, a voice filled her mind, chilling and distant, "Leave, or become like us." Emma ran to the door again, but before she could reach it, a cold hand gripped her shoulder. She spun around, her eyes wide with terror. The shadow was closer now, its form more solid, its presence suffocating. She felt a surge of cold panic and pushed against the door with all her might. With a final desperate push, the door flew open, and Emma tumbled out into the hallway, gasping for air. Shaken, she raced back to her classmates, but no one believed her when she tried to explain what had happened. They laughed it off as imagination, a product of fear in a new and unfamiliar place. But Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something dark and ancient was watching her from the depths of the school. The next day, she returned with her friend, Luke, determined to prove she wasn't just imagining things. They ventured back to the old library, and this time, they didn't wait for the door to close on its own. Instead, they braved the darkness, stepping cautiously into the room. The air was thick, as if the walls themselves were holding secrets. They discovered an old journal buried beneath the piles of forgotten books. The journal belonged to a student named Eleanor, who had mysteriously disappeared years ago. As they read through her entries, they learned of a terrible accident, a fire that had claimed the lives of several students, including Eleanor. The spirits are restless, and they want revenge. We are not safe. No one is safe. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the back of the room. The two friends turned, hearts pounding. The shadowy figure appeared once more, now much more distinct, its glowing eyes staring into their souls. Emma and Luke stumbled backward, their breath shallow, as the entity stepped forward, its voice cold and hollow. "You shouldn't have come. Now, you will never leave." The lights flickered violently, and the temperature plummeted once more. The room seemed to close in on them, as if the walls were closing in. In a split second of terror and clarity, Emma grabbed the journal and bolted for the door, pulling Luke along behind her. They ran down the corridors, the sound of footsteps following them, growing louder and closer with each passing moment. Just as they reached the entrance, Emma glanced behind her. The shadow had stopped at the threshold, its eyes burning with malevolent intent. And then, as if the school itself had grown tired of the haunting, the doors slammed shut, leaving the two friends standing outside in the safety of the daylight. The next day, Crestwood High was closed for repairs. No one ever spoke of what happened to Emma and Luke. But some say that if you visit the old library at midnight, you can still hear the faint whispers of the past calling for those who dare to uncover the truth. And perhaps, just perhaps, the shadow still waits for its next victim.